Hi there, Ford owners. Today in your 2015 Ford F350, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's Rear Anti-Sway Bar. Before we start installing our new sway bar, let's go ahead and get a baseline measurement, and we're going to hit the test course with our factory sway bar on there. Clayton's going to go ahead and hop in the vehicle here and hit the test course.
So we're going to go ahead and do a before test and see how much play there is in our rear end. We're going to go over our bump course and then do a slalom test. And here on our bump course, the rear end does make quite a bit of noise, and it doesn't feel all that tight. We'll give it a test on our slalom course. This is just feeling how much movement there is left to right. So we'll hit it kind of fast, and we'll whip the truck around. Now this does feel like a normal truck. It feels really loose, steering isn't very tight, and you can kind of feel the rear end move. So it'll be a good comparison for after our sway bar.
Now that we got the new sway bar installed, I'm going to go ahead and take it out on the test course, and we're going to see how it compared with our factory results. First, we're going to be in the bump section, which is going to simulate a pothole. And as we go over these bumps, we can definitely tell there is less rocking back and forth. It does seem to stiffen the vehicle up a little bit. So if you're concerned about having a smoother ride, this isn't really going to make it smoother, but this is really designed for those guys hauling heavy equipment. So it's going to be more beneficial for them. Lastly, we're going to be going into our slalom section, and this is going to simulate an evasive maneuver. During this section, this is where I expect to see the biggest improvements, as our sway bar is considerably larger than our old one. So when we head up here, we're going to go ahead and start ripping her back and forth. Oh yeah, and it definitely, wow, it really grips pretty good. It's actually pretty fun to drive. Considerable improvements over your factory components. And this is what our sway bar looks like when it's installed. You can tell that it's significantly larger than our factory sway bar. This is what our old sway bar used to look like right here. And there's just really no comparison on how much thicker and stronger this sway bar is. This one here I can't bend whatsoever. This guy, it was providing some support, and I know I'm pushing it together, which really isn't how sway bars work. They work in a twisting motion. But this one is significantly smaller and is going to provide not nearly as much anti-sway as our stronger, larger bar here. Also in this kit, you're going to receive new bushings, shackles, and hardware. So if you've got an old sway bar that's just got worn out bushings and you're looking to just repair it, and you're wanting to upgrade it to have less sway to be able to haul heavier items without feeling it throwing your truck around when you're going around those turns, this kit comes with all those components too. The main purpose of upgrading to a larger sway bar like this is to help minimize sway. As you're going down the road and you make turns or evasive maneuvers, the body wants to roll. And as that rolls, it kind of throws you around in the cabin. It makes it more difficult to maintain control of the vehicle. Also, when it sways, it shifts weight in a direction, which could cause the vehicle to start to pull or slide in that direction. By minimizing the sway, it just helps stabilize the vehicle and provide you with more control and stability. Having a larger bar here is going to do just that for you. Now that we've taken it out on the test course, we're going to go ahead and pull it into the shop and get our installation started. Why don't you follow along with me and Clayton? Clayton, why don't you go ahead and get it in there and get it started? To start our installation, it's a good idea to spray down our bolts with spray lubricant. That's just going to make it a little bit easier to get our bolts out. We are going to use a 1/2-inch socket. Now we can go ahead and loosen up the rest of our hardware. Will be this bolt here, and then there's two on the other side of our axle right here. When you get those bolts out, the sway bar can hang by your end links. That way you don't have to worry about taking it down. So we've almost got our last bolt out. You do want to be careful, because sometimes if there is tension on your sway bar, it'll drop down and it could hit you in the head. So just be very careful with that last bolt. So now that we have our sway bar disconnected at the bottom, we can go ahead and take off our end links. Since we're adding new end links, we can just take it off at the top, not have to worry about this part here. So we'll lower the truck down and take those end links off. Thank you, Clayton. I'm Dave. We're going to be picking up from here. We're going to start by getting our sway bar removed from the factory end link. We're using an 18mm socket, and I highly recommend using a pair of vice grips or channel locks here on the back to hold the stud And we're just going to put our socket on there and take the nut off. I like to grab the sway bar under my arm. It's a light sway bar, and this will just ensure it can't fall down on you. And we're just going to zip that nut off of there. What I like to do then is just take that nut and put it on there just a turn. And then we're going to go remove the nut on the other side, and this just keeps it from falling off on us. So now that we've got them both loose, we're just going to take those off, that couple of threads we put on there to keep them on. Slide the sway bar off our links, and we're just going to set this bad boy aside. We're now just going to do a little bit of prep on our sway bar. You'll receive some lubricant that comes included with your kit. This is for the inside of our bushings. Some people do indicate that this irritates their skin, so you may want to wear some gloves when using this. But I haven't had any issues with it, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it right there on my finger. We're going to grab our bushings, and this is going to go all up on the inside. We want to smear it all the way around there on that inside of there. Get it nice coated all the way around. Now afterwards, what I like to do, we've got a little bit of excess on our fingers here. I just like to take the excess and just kind of smear that around the outside. It can just help minimize squeaks and rattles and noises you get having a slight layer on there. Once you've got it coated up, lift up on your sway bar. The small section here is where we're going to be putting our bushing. It's a split bushing, so you can just spread it open, slide it over there, and there you go. We'll repeat the same process over on the other side. We can now take our new sway bar and we're going to hang it by our factory end links. One of the things you want to pay attention to is we've got our bar here. Where this end is straight, we want this angled up towards the sky just a little bit like that. Our Roadmaster sticker is upright, as you can see there. So we're going to go ahead and slide one side on, and we'll slide the other side on. Using our factory nuts that we had removed, we're just going to reattach right on with our new sway bar. We can now take the shackles and slip them right onto our bushing there. And they're going to go right into the factory weld nut set here, so it's a little easier if you got your hardware prepared. So these are the smaller bolts that come in your kit. You've got some similarly colored flat washers. We're going to slide those onto each one of those. So I have two for each side. We'll then need to gather a spacer. You have a spacer that comes in your kit, and you'll be using one on each side. This spacer is just going to sit between our shackle and our factory attachment point. So we can now lift this up into place. We're just going to start doing one at a time. Grab one of your bolts. I like to just grab one, slide it through, because if you can get one bolt started, it makes things significantly easier. Now that we got that guy started in there, we'll grab our second bolt on the bottom here and put this one on. We'll then go over to the bushing on the other side and repeat that same procedure to get these started. I like to have everything loosely installed before we tighten it down, just to make sure everything's going to fit the way we want it to. Now that all of our hardware is loosely installed, we can go ahead and tighten down our bolts. We're going to use a 15mm socket for our shackle bolts here. And I was just pushing up slightly on the spacer just so we didn't have too much stuff hanging down too low. We'll tighten down the other shackle, and then we can move on to the end links. We'll tighten down our end links with the factory bolts that we had removed from our old sway bar. We're just going to use our 18mm socket to tighten these down. When tightening these down, what you want to pay attention to is the rubber here. We want to make sure it's nice and snug, but we don't want to squish the rubber out too far. We just want to basically get it tight until it just barely begins to squish the rubber. We'll then do the same thing over on the other side. With all of our hardware tightened down, we're ready to load up our vehicle and hit the road. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster's Rear Anti-Sway Bar on our 2015 Ford F350.